Welcome back. Balochistan has been an area of great concern to Pakistan's policymakers and its military establishment. There has been an insurgency in Balochistan on and off from the late 60s and 70s onwards, but more recently, a rather aggressive insurgency that Pakistan's army and its security forces are dealing with in an extremely high-handed manner, leading to a lot of political and extrajudicial killings. Balochistan and the Baluchis have their own issues with the Pakistani establishment. Mr. Parthasarthi, it is said that Balochistan is an immensely resource-rich area, but again scantily populated, and they have a problem with how their resources have been taken away, from gas to gold to various other minerals that they have by the Punjabi elite. Balochistan has a very low human development index. Some of the poorest villages in Pakistan, including Bukti, Dera Bukti, are in Balochistan. What is really, in your mind, the cause of the insurgency, and is it justified on the part of Pakistan to continue to keep harping on the fact that India is behind the insurgency in Balochistan?
Well, let's put it this way. Baloch sort of resentment towards Pakistan has commenced from the days it was integrated into Pakistan. The belief that the Khan of Kalat was taken for a ride, the fact who was the de facto ruler, the fact that it was really never administered for a very long time from British India but from Oman. Now, the other factor to be borne in mind is, as you said, very resource rich. Virtually all the natural gas that Pakistan has consumed so far, whether it is for power stations or for lighting houses, came from Balochistan. And the Balochis got no royalty, nothing in return. So there is this deep feeling of economic alienation and exploitation in Balochistan, very similar to what existed in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, they made the export earnings, and West Pakistan progressed on imports. Here, these people produce the gas, nothing is invested. You have large parts of Balochistan itself without power or gas, whereas it goes to Punjab. Punjabi exploitation in Balochistan is as strong a factor as it was in Bangladesh in the years preceding 1971. This is the reality. And in internal terms, it means an insurrection, which for the first, and this was compounded when there was a measure of freedom, and Ayub introduced the one unit to balance in 1954. Again, that created the initial resistance and resentment, and it has grown. Those are the political reasons: no autonomy, economic exploitation, no say in the governance of the country. But for the first time, Maruf, we are seeing all the three major tribes, Mari, Bukti and Bengal, together against the Pakistani state and the Pakistan army in an armed struggle which is led by Baloch youth, which resent Punjabi exploitation, which is a fact of life. They have no autonomy. And it's only picking up momentum. They can blame India, but the fact of the matter is
they have to set their house in order.
And secondly, traditionally, we don't have a border with Balochistan.
Absolutely.
All the tribal rebels have gone either to London or Afghanistan, never to India.
Mr. Sareen, Adil Khan wrote in the Herald in Pakistan in June 2008 to say that the Pakistan army is the biggest land grabber in Balochistan. It is giving away the coast of Balochistan for peanuts, and in Gwadar, the army is operating like a mafia, falsifying land records. They say the people don't have papers, but the people say that they've been there for centuries and centuries when there was no paperwork that existed. Equally important, a point that Mr. Parthasarthi made, that the Pakistan army seems to enjoy a privileged position in Pakistan society that's known to us. But the districts from where they recruit, like Jhelum and elsewhere, have the highest human development index. Here, you have the lowest human development index. Pakistan Army and Pakistan takes away close to $1.5 billion worth of gas reserves from Baluchistan and gives them 100 million in return. So what's your take?
Look, the take is that number one, Balochistan was actually forcibly incorporated into Pakistan. It wasn't a voluntary, accession to Pakistan. Number one, there was an elected assembly at that point of time which wanted to go independent. Its treaty relationship with the British Crown was very different from other princely states. The other thing is that, as Mr. Parthasarathi is pointing out, most of the gas in Balochistan was coming out of Dera Bukti. I don't think
which is the poorest
area, and Dera Bukti never got gas until very recently. There were no gas pipelines running into, so the Dera Bukti citizen was always deprived of the gas which was coming out from his own soil, and it was transported to Punjab and to Sindh and everywhere else. So Balochistan's share of gas in Pakistan from around 80% is now down to about 17 or 18%. So obviously it's been exploited very heavily. The second thing is that you're right, on Gwadar there was a massive land grab in the 90s and the early 2000s. In fact, there used to be these full-page ads in Lahore newspapers selling societies and selling land to Punjabis, and a lot of people invested, but then they burned their fingers because Gwadar never really took off. So the land prices shot through the roof, and suddenly now they've collapsed. The other problem with Gwadar is there's no drinking water. There's a massive drinking water crisis, and if Gwadar was ever to develop into a proper port city and other people were to come and settle out there, how would you supply drinking water? There is no. So there were ships which were carrying water for the people out there. The story of, if India was actually doing even a tenth of what the Pakistanis accuse us of, I think Balochistan would be an independent country by now.
What is it that Pakistan has to offer to the Chinese? Because there have been articles, with one in The Economist, which has suggested that the Chinese are seriously reconsidering their $46 billion investment if it has to go through Balochistan, because Chinese tankers have been attacked in the past by Baluchis. Pakistan's power setup has been cut off by the Baluchis, where 80% blackout took place in the country. So clearly there is a problem there.
I recall being told by a Baluchi leader who shall remain unnamed, don't make the mistake of getting the Iran pipeline. As long as we are dissatisfied, we would hate to blow it up and cause you damage. That is the extent of Baluchi sentiment on Punjabi domination. Now, I think the fact of the matter is the Baluchis have got nothing out of this, and as for the Chinese, they have even attacked Chinese. Don't forget, Chinese experts have been attacked, and the Chinese are very scared of going there. My own hunch, Maruf, is that the stage is set for a separate action plan. They will not take the line through Balochistan.
Okay,
they
so
will
the
take
economic
it
corridor would probably go through another route.
No, it will go simple. Punjab, Sindh, and cross into Balochistan at the southern tip.
But I need to conclude for shortage of time, and quite clearly there is a case for Balochistan and their fight for independence, and the big question is that would India be willing to go that extra mile and support the Baluchis just the way that Pakistanis have all these years been chest thumping and saying they are providing moral and other support to the Kashmiris. So here are people who could become India's allies in putting Pakistan on the back foot. But equally important, there are 3 or 4 other points that have come up in the discussion, that Gilgit-Baltistan and the so-called Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the Azad Kashmir, what Pakistan calls, is kept under a tight hold by the Pakistani government, while at the same time with promises of self-rule, in the hope that one day all this will become part of the big Jammu and Kashmir should a plebiscite take place in Pakistan's favor. Equally important is the fact that in Baltistan, the route that the Chinese are building could also be used by the Chinese to store missiles and nuclear weapons, since that territory and that region is a perfect ground to put some of these very lethal military stocks away in the mountainous region. And finally, the Baluchis feel they are being exploited day and night by the Pakistani state, and in many ways, the situation in Balochistan today is as bad, almost, as it was in East Pakistan before the 1971 war. With that, we'll come to an end of this debate. I thank you very much, both for being with us on this show. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, goodbye.